Yes, yes, yes. It is a Castworthy podcast, and we are back after a little hiatus. I am Big Steve, aka Hello, my name's Steve, on the Instagram machine, joined by the VP and EJ, the Savage One. It is summertime, so he's back to his dastardly doing, and it is Sunday, June 8th. We are back. EJ tried to dodge the smoke last week because he didn't want to hear about his team getting Bing Bonged. And,
Mhm.
he thought that we would forget because it's a week later. But the end of the Knicks tape, as we know it, took place last week. No EJ insight for at least 4 days. Glad he's okay. But we're back. How you guys doing? What you been up to? VP, we haven't heard from you in like a month. What you got going on?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I don't know. I've been dealing with some personal shits, and we had our family land cruise. That was that was good.
That's fun.
Um, yeah. We had like couple of dinner experiences where we did like hibachi. They came to the house. We had an Airbnb and stuff, and so they came out to the house, cooked for us. It was entertaining. Um, we had a chef, like on the cruise, you do your fancy night or whatever they call it, where you dress up. So we did that and had a chef come in, did some lamb chops and some like some Cajun pasta or whatever. So that was good too. Yeah, so I mean overall it was a good time. Ended up having an incident with me with my my condition and stuff. I won't get into that, but it was a problem. But for the most part, trip went well. It was safe for that incident. Um, Something that happened on a trip that was like it was funny. When it happened, it was kind of like what the fuck, and then it was like funny as hell after because the hibachi dude showed up, Chef Bobby, and
Y'all had a white dude doing hibachi for you?
no, it was Asian guy or whatever. And
Oh,
so when he
oh,
got there, he
pseudo,
was, he said
pseudonym.
hi to everybody. And so we get out back and he starts cooking and shit. And I was like, wait, what the fuck? Am I tripping? Like I'm questioning like reality and shit because when he got there, he came through the house so he can go see because he cooked out on the patio, like we ate on the back patio or whatever.
Right.
And so when he walked in, he was like, "Hey, how everybody? Oh, I can't talk. Hey, how everybody doing?" And we're like, "Hey, what's up, man?" So he goes out back, figure out where it's gonna get set up, whatever. So he go out and get set up, and we come out there because we're like out there while he's cooking and stuff. And when he gets ready to go, he's like, "Okay, everybody, shut up, I gotta be how about you?" That. And I was like, "Wait, what the fuck?"
Dude, what?
Yo, stop lying to me.
I'm dead ass serious,
My
yo. I'm
man
like,
code switched to get in character.
hell yeah, dog.
No, he
And
didn't.
like I'm sitting there because I'm like, I could have swore this dude like had a straight up like American accent when I heard it, but I'm like, maybe I'm tripping. You know what I mean? Maybe he sounded like that, and I heard it wrong or something. You know what I'm saying? And so he gets done or whatever. It's like after he finished cooking and stuff, we paid him and he bounced. We still eating, and so I bring that up like to the group or whatever. And our friend Tracy is like, nah. She was like, I was thinking the same shit. She was like, because when he came out here, he asked me to open the gate so he can bring in all his cooking equipment. So he have to bring it through the house. He just brought it through the yard or whatever. And she was like, he literally walked up to me and was like, hey, excuse me, can you open that gate for me? And she was like, yeah, no problem. And then we started cooking. He was doing the whole.
Nah, yo.
I was like, yo, that's crazy, yo.
Chef Bobby got to be brought to the table, yo. This is ridiculous. My man code switched to get in character.
He walked in like, "What's up, fam?"
Exactly.
Y'all good? Yo,
That's what.
Yeah.
that's hilarious, bro. That's hilarious. I did not expect that.
What about you? Anything fun going on?
Same old stuff, man. Same old stuff. It's working, keeping out the way. It's finally hot up here now. So
Is it
finally, it was like 50 last week. Now it's in the 80s.
interesting? All right. Well, how do you feel about the Knicks sucking?
Listen, man. I mean, it is what I said it was gonna be. Um, they just got out coached. I was in a spirited debate recently on how the Pacers are just a better team. But I'm like, bro, we blew a 17-point lead in the fourth quarter in game one at home. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't get any better than that. And no adjustments being made. You know what I mean? We come back, we win game five to save our lives, right?
Yeah.
Tibbs uses the bench. You got two physical guys guarding Halliburton. He doesn't score. They get a lot of points from the bench. Comes back game six, throws the whole playbook in the trash, goes back to a 7-man roster for most of the game, and they just look like they had no legs. They look tired. Just the offense just painstaking to watch. I mean, again, I've been saying it forever. Shout out to Tibbs for giving this team some stability. After years of not having a good coach, but he's run his course, man. This is what he does. He gets to a team, he takes them a certain length to success, and he runs them in the ground, and he's stubborn and doesn't like to change his ways. So I am happy as a result of this that he did get fired. Supposedly, him and his buddy Leon Rose haven't been speaking. There's a whole bunch of stuff coming out, but I just think at this point, this team, if it stays the way it is, or even if it gets altered in any way, we need somebody who's gonna do the right thing. Shout out to Rick Carlisle. Indiana continues to play like 10 people a game, and literally, according to the numbers, are the reason that they had success in game one. Not going too far into that, but yeah, man, it hurt for me as a Knicks fan because this was a good window for us to make it to the finals. We had that lead in game one, and we blew it. That was the series right there. So it's a good run. It was a good run. Hopefully, the basketball gods will be on our side for another time, but you never know, right? So here we are.
I mean, I hear you, right? But I think that, excuse me, I think the Knicks massively overachieved, right? And the team, it's not as good as their final, I don't want to say record, but like their final, like where they ended up in the Eastern Conference Finals. You know what I'm saying? They play a Boston team that they're literally getting worked, and Boston just blows leads or whatever. And again, you can't say, oh well, Boston. I don't like the whole like did this team win or did that team lose like scenario. You know what I'm saying? Like they were
Hmm.
up 20 and the Knicks came back. It is what it is. But I still don't think that New York was going to win that series. And then you have a freak injury where Tatum blows out his Achilles, and that's the series. Even though Boston won that next game, we knew that the series was over at that point with no Tatum because Jaylen Brown was not going to be enough to carry that team over New York. And so, you know, they don't play against a Cavs team that rocked them all season in the regular season or whatever. So they just had a lot that broke their way, and then finally they reach a young team that, one, they was there last year. Two, they got a Tyrese Halliburton who seems to be on a mission to prove that he's not overrated. You know what I'm saying? And even though in some of these games he's not even playing like big time, but he's just hitting these big shots in he's like Robert Horry all of a sudden, with these big shots at the right moment. And so, I think New York fired Thibodeau because they planned on firing Thibodeau. And it's just that Okay, we're gonna fire him as soon as the season over. Oh man, we made the playoffs, so we can't fire him yet. We'll fire him as soon as we get bumped out of the first round. Okay, we made the second round. Boston's definitely gonna beat us, so we'll fire him once the Boston series done. Oh man, we made the conference finals, and then now they lose in the Eastern Conference Finals. It's like, well, we were gonna fire him anyway, so let's just fire him because you guys have made the playoffs. I think 4 out of 5 years that he's been there, and this is your deepest playoff run since he's been the coach, your deepest playoff run probably since the 90s. And they fired the head man, which to a lot of people don't make sense. I get all your arguments against Thibodeau, but anybody who watches sports says, man, my team was 1 round away from the championship and they fired the coach. I don't understand what's happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, everything you said really quickly is true. I mean, and that's sports. You need stuff to break your way, and that's just how it goes down. I think the thing is, I don't know that they intended to fire him all year because of the relationships that he has in that office. But I mean, a lot of stuff is coming out now. He still had time on his contract. I think the general thought was they would give him 1 more year. But I think the problem is again when you have guys like a Mikal Bridges who hasn't missed a game, who's going throughout the year saying, "Yo, we playing too many minutes," and his style of coaching just probably isn't beneficial for them trying to lure somebody in next year to try to take them over the top. So, but I'll let you.
And EJ, I'm glad you said that because literally what you said is what y'all's boy Nick Wright said. He said that he believes, he don't got no reporting on this, but he believes that the Knicks believe if we bring in the right guy, we can get Giannis. And that's why they got rid of Tibbs.
I don't like that play for Giannis for the Knicks, if in my opinion. But the Knicks did they had a good season. They overachieved, I think, in a little bit of ways because to EJ's point, I think the bar is low or was low with Thibodeau coming in as the coach because of the fact that he likes to run people into the ground and they lost their depth, a lot of their depth. So Jalen Brunson just happened to be able to get through it. Miles Bridges, these guys just happened to stay healthy. But with the amount of mileage he put on those guys, you expected by the time you got to the second round or third round of the playoffs, if possible, that they would have been done. You know what I mean? I agree with you, VP, slightly that they probably wouldn't have beat Boston with Tatum. But I mean, you can only beat what's on the schedule, right? That's your thing. You can only beat who's in front of you. And they did what they had to do. I don't know that going to the Eastern Conference Finals, in my opinion, warrants firing Thibodeau. And I get what you're saying that they probably had it planned to do it, but sometimes you got to change plans. Like you made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like now, what happens next season? If you bring in a new coach and it doesn't gel, doesn't work, obviously you're going to have more competition because Boston is going to be back healthy. Who knows what moves they're going to make because they're going to have to break that team up due to contracts and stuff. Do other teams in the East get stronger because people move Giannis and others? I don't know. This was the shot that they had to get there. And while they didn't, if they don't make it next year, it's going to look like a bad decision on the Knicks ownership and getting rid of him. I don't know. And the other thing is, who do you go get? A lot of people are saying Malone, the old Denver coach. Obviously EJ wants Mark Jackson. He's wanted him for the last 30 years, and I think that's a great that would be probably the best option, but we already know Mark Jackson ain't getting in there. He said he was going to try and smash Steph Curry's wife, so he's never getting a job again. You can't talk about nobody light skin. But who do you guys think is the right fit for the Knicks as a replacement?
I mean, reports are that they're targeting Jason Kidd in a trade with Dallas, but I don't know if the Knicks even have the assets for that in terms of draft picks. So we'll see what happens. But if that is true, if they even interview him, he's the coach. You know what I mean? Like all the rest is window dressing. You know what I'm saying? And so that'll be interesting or whatever. But I don't like the former Denver coach. I mean, I think he's a decent coach, but I don't like him for New York. Um, and I'm not real familiar with any like assistants that are out there, so I don't know. You know what I mean? But I think it'll be interesting just because the New York job, I think it's tough, man. It's you know, you got all the media there, which I think that stuff is like overrated. I think it's more the media like kind of believe in their own hype. You know what I mean? It was hard to play in New York when you're the quarterback of the New York teams, or when you play for the Knicks and the New York media, blah blah blah. I just think that's a bunch of bullshit. Oh, you know what I mean? You're playing in a league where these franchises are valued at $10 billion or just under. The expectations are high everywhere or whatever. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that's an old school mentality, I think. Now
Yeah,
because the news gets around so fast now. So I think historically, yeah. But now that the internet, it's at your fingerprint, you're at your fingertips within 5 minutes of the person saying something. I
right.
agree with you. I don't think that's
I
elite.
agree. I agree to disagree with y'all in the sense that we talked about the value of big markets. So just how, the ticket prices in Indiana, ticket prices in OKC is this price. When you flip it to that New York market, yes, there's media and there's people with their phone everywhere. But when you talk about the fans, I mean, just look how psycho the New York fans are. You know what I mean? You can't drive if you're a player outside of the arena without somebody getting in front of your car and wilding you out and all these things. And then you got to constantly hear it everywhere you go. You know what I mean? Like in the shops and everywhere, And I can't speak for smaller markets like Indiana, but I know it's not five or six different sports stations for the Indiana Pacers. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's. I agree that I think it is an old school mentality, but I definitely think there is some credence there. But to the point of the coaching, I think too. Johnny Bryant was one of our assistants for the last 4 years. He, was one of Leon Rose's favorite guys. He goes to Cleveland. Um, we thought the Suns were going to hire him, but the Suns went elsewhere. So he's a possibility. I don't know if Dallas is going to allow, us to really get to J K. I would like that. I think he would be good for this team. He's coached Brooklyn. He played for the Knicks for a little bit. So I don't think if any of that New York market stuff applies, I don't think it's going to bother him. But I want to go back to Thibodeau again, you saw Mike Malone get fired after he's won a championship. Budenholzer get fired after he won a championship. And typically, those types of things, winning a championship gives you a lot of real estate. So we're seeing these teams kind of move to want to move away from these guys for whatever these reasons are and kind of not, have lifelong relationships. And I think with Thibodeau, again, man, yes, he took us out of purgatory, took us the furthest we've been in 25 years. But again, he's never been heralded as a great coach. He's had superstars before, Derrick Rose, Cat, Jimmy Butler, all of these guys. And he kind of always hits the ceiling because the problem with him is he never gets out his own way. And to Steve's point, you can't play a seven-man roster 48 minutes a game and then get to the Eastern Conference or any playoff level and not either see injuries or fatigue. And you saw it in the series. You had guys, Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, game one, they're playing fast, they're fresh, they're locking in. And then by game three, I mean, these guys looked like they had no legs, and you can't have that style of basketball in today's NBA when you got guys on the Pacers, OKC, all these places that can go 3 to 4 deep on their bench and kill you. We can't do that. And that was the problem. He got into the playoffs and he wanted to then rely on guys you haven't played all season. It doesn't work that well. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
And I hear what you're saying. I would just push back slightly on the Budenholzer and Malone firing, only to add just a little bit of context is that on Budenholzer, reports were at the time that the Bucks intended on firing him at the end of the season, and then they won the championship, and they were kind of stuck. And I think that was, if I remember correctly, I believe that was the last year of his contract as well. So it wasn't even that they were firing him; they just weren't going to re-up him. And then kind of a Mike McCarthy situation with the Cowboys. You know what I mean? and then they won the championship, and now the team is like, damn, what do we do? You know what I mean? And so they extended him and then fired him. Then I think it was either the next year or 2 years later or something like that. And with the Mike Malone thing, he basically lost the locker room when he got fired. He started talking shit about the players in press conferences, and the team was like, "This dude got to go." You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's like a 1-to-1 comparison, but I get your point overall, though.
But to that end, again, and I think it's been downplayed the little controversy they had with Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges, whatever you think about him, whatever kind of player caliber you think about him, we gave up first 5 round picks for him. Granted, picks in the NBA is not the same as the NFL, but that was a haul to some degree either way, right? And when you have this guy who's the part of the Villanova core and all of this stuff, and he's coming out saying, "Yo, I've never missed a game in years in my whole career, and this guy's playing us way too hard." And then Tibbs comes out and says, "Oh, we didn't have a conversation." Bridges though said we had a conversation, all this shit. And so also on top of that, I think Leon Rose, who used to be Tim's manager at some point, who's now, general manager and head of operations, supposedly they're beefing. So I think to your point, there's some behind the scenes things that we don't know about that it might have been his time either way.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't understand why Dallas would. I mean, outside of just being petty or hating, why they wouldn't allow Jason Kidd to go to the Knicks. Like, you know what I mean? He basically left after they made a decision to move Luka that he clearly wasn't on board with, right? And so now, if you want to hold on to this guy, anything you get for him is great. Otherwise, you're going to continue to pay him, right? You're going to be paying him for a guy you're getting nothing from.
Yeah.
So if I'm them, I would be talking to the Knicks, nicely. Like, yo, what you got? Send me something. I'd like Malone for the Knicks only because I like his attitude. And while I do not agree, or I do agree with you, VP, in the sense that the media is not the reason why New York is tough to play in, but the fans and the market, to EJ's point, is. And a guy like Malone, who he's from New York, he is able to adapt to that type of culture. New York fans are assholes. It's just the reality of it. And there's a culture of New York fan. There's a culture in New York in general, sports fans. I think he fits that. He fits that mold because he can adapt to us because he's got the little hood in him and he's white. So the whites aren't going to hate him. You know what I'm saying? But if he had that mindset and that attitude and he was black, then you'd have to worry about the whites hating him, the racist Jews and stuff like that.
Did you guys see the whole
These Tibbs 2.0. That's why I don't like
did
Malone.
you guys
Tibbs 2.0.
did y'all see the whole they were calling this the Paul George finals? Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
That shit is crazy. Did you see it, Steve?
Mm-mm.
They basically were saying how
because he played for both teams.
Well, no. So Paul George, when he was with Indiana, he tried to engineer a trade to the Lakers, and Indiana was like, "Yeah, we hear you, dog, but we're gonna pass." And they traded him to OKC, and
Right.
in that trade, they ended up getting fuck like they ended up getting Sabonis for Sabonis and Oladipo, and then they later trade Sabonis to the Kings for Tyrese Halliburton. That's how he gets to Indiana.
Right.
And then on the other side, when he ended up going to the Clippers, the OKC trades him to the Clippers, and they end up getting Shea. So I'm like, that shit is crazy, man.
What else? Halliburton, man, that shot. I don't know. Indy was down the whole game. Clearly, I don't know if you guys watched it, but most people, I watched it. I think we all watched it.
Yeah.
And he just didn't look like himself. And then even when he shot that shot, he didn't look confident in it, and it didn't look like it came off his hand good. Like that shot looked like it was a full out luck shot,
Yeah.
and that was just the stars aligning. Now, everything they did to get to that point where they were within, you know, grasp of winning, or within, arm's reach of winning. They played well. They played really well in that situation, being down, but I don't know if that's sustainable. Like tonight, we've got game two. It's in OKC. How do you guys feel about the series and tonight's game?
I totally agree with you. When I saw one of the still images from the shot, like his hand didn't look like it was right or whatever.
Right,
So I definitely
right.
think that shot was luck. But hey, sometimes that saying, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And so, there you go. But but I don't think that the way that Indiana is winning these games is sustainable. But, again, sometimes you just need a shot. You just need to be in distance, for we're down 6, 2 minutes left. Maybe we get an and one, hit a quick three, and next thing you know, we win by 1 or 2. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes that's
Hmm.
all it takes. And it kind of reminds. I know Steve's about to roll his eyes in the back of his head when I say it, because he always talks about how I got to shoehorn Miami into something or whatever. But the way that the Indiana's winning, it reminds me of when we beat Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. And Joe Mazzulla at the press conferences was like, if you look at the box scores, we've actually only lost 2 quarters in this whole series. And I'm like, if you look at the final score, you've lost all these games. You know what I'm saying? Like that box score at the end of the quarters, that's some bullshit, that you're trying to hype yourself up with. Like, we're doing well. We just got to fix these small little things. You're still losing the games.
But Missoula's
You
a
know what
dick,
I'm
so I expect nothing less from him.
saying? And so I think that from OKC's perspective, you can come into this thing saying, if you look at the box scores and how things are going at first, halftime, third quarter, etc., we're killing them. We just have these little mental breakdowns, and they're taking advantage of that or whatever. But I don't care about what the box score says at the end of the first quarter. It matters
Mm.
what it says at when the shit says final. You know what I'm saying? And so I think Indiana could win it. I don't think they will win, but I think they could if the other team keeps having these momentary collapses.
Yeah.
So I think with Indiana, you know, this is their identity, right? And we can talk about sustainability, which makes sense, but shit don't matter now because they are where they need to be. You know what I'm saying? Technically, they only got to win 3 more games. You know what I mean? And it's over. And so I think it's their style of basketball. And we know that number one, basketball is a game of runs now. This league today is a game of runs. As we saw, they were down 17 game one versus the Knicks. Come back, the Knicks in Boston, the comebacks. So I think this is kind of par for their style. And I wanted to introduce the point of Rick Carlisle. He benched all 5 starters early in the fourth and sparked a 15-4 run that shifted the momentum. So, I mean, again, this guy, he's been there before. He's been a coach that the league, he knows the league inside out. And I think, OKC kind of fell asleep at the wheel, and all Indiana needed was one. Now they go out there. To y'all point, Halliburton didn't really have a phenomenal game. Now, right, they can go out there OKC game two with nothing to lose and
Hmm.
play loose as possible. And hey, if they come in there and they steal another game,
Oh
we
yeah.
this was a series. This was a series people were saying OKC's gonna sweep them.
Yeah, it's trouble time if they steal another one. The thing is, what I noticed is OKC's defense at the beginning of the game looked like it looked like the best defense I had ever seen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen some really defensive teams before, and some players that have had one or two people. They were everywhere. Dort was all over where he needed to be. Williams was in there. Shea was doing things like taking the ball. Like they were just taking the ball from these guys, like the old playground reach around pause and grab the ball from, you know what I mean, as you're dribbling away. Like it was, the defense looked so good, and then out of nowhere it seemed like they forgot how to play defense. And I don't know if that was a coaching thing, I don't know if that was a lineup change thing. Their coach is fairly young. He doesn't even look like a good coach to me. Like when I see him, he doesn't look like he's ever stressed. He doesn't look like he's even calculating anything. You see, they pan to him, his arms are usually folded. He might do some shit with his fingers, and that's all you really see of him. I mean, I'm not going to take anything from him because he's got them where they are. But they do have a hell of a talent, lineup on that team. But defensively, I think is what messed them up at the end. And I don't know if they can't keep up that level. Indiana's deep, man. Nemhard can score. You got Siakam who's over there, who's playing his part, who's doing what he needs to do. Halliburton, if he gets going and can actually make the plays, because he's been averaging like 12 assists a game. Dude he's balling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
He is balling. So I think it's
And
going to be a good series.
what I
Miles
like
Turner
about
was big
Halliburton
last game
too,
too.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. What I like about Halliburton too is like he plays like an old school point guard where he's not a score first point guard. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, like you talk about coaching, they get the ball with like what 8 seconds. Rick Carlisle don't take timeout, which didn't let OKC set the defense because they probably would have put Dort on Halliburton, and then he doesn't get that shot. You got Siakam who's playing better. You know, was it Siakam or was it Naismith that hit the 2 threes like late or whatever that got him there?
I thought it was Miles Turner.
Was it Turner? Okay.
I thought it was Miles Turner that had those fourth quarter threes in the
I can
corner.
tell you for sure it wasn't Neesmith because I had an 11-point prop on that piece of shit, and he couldn't even score 11 points.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think Miles Turner hit the 3-pointers late, like back to back
Right.
joints.
But
Yeah, I
my
don't know what
my
time it
point
was,
is
but
my point is though is that there were hotter hands than Halliburton to give that final
yeah,
shot to, and I
yeah.
think that kind of speaks to the whole like Halliburton's overrated thing. It don't seem like his teammates think he's overrated because they got that rebound and put the ball right in his hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And he goes down.
In
And
fact, they made it a point. Like I think they had it in the backcourt, and they were looking for him to do the
yeah,
handoff. So yeah, I
yeah.
agree with you.
So you know what I mean. So it's I think they got a chance to win this thing because DJ's point, they only got to win 3. They already took home court. And if they go in here and steal game 2, man, it's going to be really tough on OKC. And if they win this thing, man, I said it before in chat. I think I may have said it on here as well, but Halliburton is going to be a problem. Like even if the rest of his career is dog shit,
Right.
that overrated thing and him winning a championship, man, he is going to be a problem. So,
he's gonna have the biggest milk orgy that anyone could ever see. There you go. Shout out to my man Kenny. Knicks fans, man, y'all will come out of anywhere, huh? Yeah, I think it's going to be a long series. I don't think this is going to be done quickly, but I look forward to it. I have OKC winning tonight. I actually took OKC. I think the spread is 11 right now, so that's who I'm rolling with for tonight's game. I just think they're going to get out there and they're going to run them out the building because they have to, and they have the ability to. Like that team is so deep.
I'm just pissed off. I missed that bet. I had 4 people that didn't hit their point totals by half points.
Oh, I saw that.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. 4 people missed the bet by half points.
yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it.
Man, that I was it 2 years ago? Whenever I can't remember, I did that. I did a 7-leg parlay, and the only one that didn't hit was Jaylen Brown. I think his number was like 23.5.
Mm-hmm.
And this dude had, I think he had 22 points like to start the fourth quarter and only
Right.
scored a free throw in the fourth quarter. I'm like, yo,
We had the same. We had the same parlay. We was
yeah.
all in the chat talking about it. Piece of shit.
Uh,
On the basketball front, man. I wanted to do it last week, but we didn't record. We're done with inside the NBA. There's no more inside the NBA, man. So rest in peace to inside the NBA. Probably the one of the best, if not the best. And I don't know if it's the longest, obviously, if you count Sports Center and stuff like that. But sports show, like I would catch myself staying up till 11 o'clock at night, even if I had to work first thing in the morning, just to hear them break down the 3 games or the 4 games or the 2 games that happened that night, man. That's a big loss, man. I know that they've gotten some jobs elsewhere and stuff like that, and we'll see how that goes. But
Yeah, I think they're going to ESPN, right?
are they going as a tandem? I know Chuck is going to ESPN.
I think they all are.
Yeah, I thought they
Okay.
all were.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All together or different shows?
Mhm. I
No,
believe they're all together.
I think it's the 4 of them going, and
Oh, okay.
then like I think they're bringing like some of their top like behind the scenes people, and then other folks took jobs at CBS and Amazon and stuff like that.
Well, they're the talent, so you know what I
Yeah, yeah.
mean.
But
I don't.
I think the concern is for people, even though they're all going, is that ESPN is going to be involved, and they don't feel like it might be as creative as it used to be with TNT, etc. So I think that's
That's
the real fear.
And filtering, right? Because it's Disney.
that's my concern. Not even the filtering. My concern is like they have their own dynamic between the 4 of them, but
Mhm.
you already know that when they get over there, they're gonna shoehorn in Stephen A. Smith. Um, every now and then you might have like somebody like Perkins
They better not put Big Dumb Perk on that show.
or what's her face? They Ernie might be out. They're gonna put in Malika Andrews and stuff like that. Or is her name? I know her name is Malika. I don't know if it's Andrews, but Malika. And folks like that. And I don't know if that dynamic is gonna work with them, especially with Stephen A. Because like these guys have like a built-in, kind of chemistry, and I
Mhm.
know they probably knows them like from like they're at all the same stuff together, covering the finals and covering these different things. But Stephen A is like such a big personality, and a lot of his personality seems manufactured. You know what I'm saying? So it don't seem like organic the way it does with the crew that's going over, Shaq and Chuck and all of those boys. Whereas like I can imagine the first show they got Stephen A on there, and they asked him a question, and Stephen A is gonna be like, before we get started, like let me first say, like, what a privilege it is to be here with Big Shaq, Superman, Diesel. I remember him back with the Orlando Magic and back with the Los Angeles Lakers,
Mhm.
and Kenny Smith playing with them boys down in Houston, and Akeem Olajuwon and all that. We know what they already about. And it's just like, dude, like.
Forcing it in.
Yeah, like it's
Whoa.
over the top for no reason. It's like over the top for no reason, and
It's
it's
Pride Month, yo.
yeah. So yeah, I'm not gonna Stephen A. Of it.
Shaq came out and said, because they're addressing this. It's a real thing for people. Shaq came out and said, "I'm not changing. Chuck's not changing." So they hear the noise that ESPN is going to try to change them and censor them or whatever. But according to Shaq, he's saying Chuck and I are not changing. So it is what it is.
We know
Yeah.
Ernie is the diplomatic one, right? So Ernie's gonna make it. He's gonna make it work. You know what I'm saying? He's the one. He kind of keeps. He's the Phil Jackson of it all. He's the
Mhm.
the coach that actually does something, not like that Miami guy who has the talent
Right.
and just shows up to practice. Um,
And was I think also what's going to be different is that when you watch Chuck and them, they do their broadcast like analysts. This is what we saw. This is what I think. Even though before the game they pick the games and stuff, we think this team's going to win. We think this person's going to do this. Whatever, right? But they go in like analysts, and when this is one of the things I've always criticized ESPN for, is because one, they make their whole NBA coverage focused around Stephen A. And then Stephen A is a Knicks fan, right? And we know that everybody got a team that they're a fan of, but they push that forward with Stephen A. And so I wonder how that dynamic is going to be, where they're doing Knicks games and all of these guys are talking about, oh, well, Brunson needs to do this, needs to do that, boop, boop. And Stephen A is giving all these fan comments or whatever, instead of like analyzing, the play that he's seeing. You know what I mean? You see the same thing with like Perkins and the Celtics and stuff like that. You see it on even with the NFL stuff with Mike Greenberg, who's a Jets fan. So that kind of stuff. I wonder how that's going to play out once they get going.
Really quickly before we address that, I think I'm gonna say I have high hopes for this show because I think if you look at what College Game Day has become and the introduction of Pat McAfee, I think ESPN is gonna be smart enough to let them do what they do. But I had not heard about Shaq saying the NBA is scripted. Um, that's kind of wild to hear.
I saw something about that. I think he said that at some point last year, but for some reason it's resurfaced. It's resurfaced pretty heavily. Let me see if I can find the actual clip of when he said it. Oh, he was on I think this was on Funny Marco. He was on with Funny Marco, and he said Funny Marco said, "Are your rings real?" And he says no. And he says, "So you knew you were getting it was rigged." So I'm wondering if that's what blew up. I'm looking to see if there was another one.
So I see something else. It's two other quotables where Shaq talked about talking to David Stern prior to the draft, asking Shaq whether he wanted to play in a cold or hot weather city. And shortly after, the Magic won the draft lottery and then selected him despite having lower odds than other teams. Then the other thing was the 2000 NBA Finals story. Shaq recounted a story from the first championship season with the Lakers, saying he overheard Lakers coach Phil Jackson discussing hotel arrangements in Indiana, the eventual location of the NBA Finals against the Indiana Pacers. Shaq implies that this suggests the outcome of the finals was predetermined. So,
Got it.
Nah, I don't think so. Like if I had to get, like, and I guess it's just because I'm not like conspiracy minded, So if I had to guess, I'm not going to argue that Phil Jackson thing didn't happen, right? But it may have been a situation where it's Indiana and whoever is playing in the conference finals, and excuse me, and they're discussing hotel arrangements for either outcome. You know what I'm saying? Shaq hears only a portion of the conversation and thinks like, "Oh shit, they already know this team's gonna win. This shit's rigged." You know what I'm saying? And so I just think that like the whole NBA is rigged, the draft lottery is rigged, and all that kind of stuff like that. For it to be rigged, there's like too many people that have to be involved in the rigging. And then also, it's only like it's not rigged for anybody else, right? Because it's like, okay, if I'm the Heat, if I'm the Falcons, if I'm the Thunder, all these teams that haven't picked like in a top five in years, like when is it going to be rigged for me? You know what I mean? Like I
Right.
have to be going along with the rigging, but
Well,
also not benefiting from it at all. You know what I'm saying?
could
Like like
could
like
be
like if
marketability. Like the Falcons aren't marketable. They are in a big city that can be marketed. But I found the clip. Let's just listen to it and see, how it sounds. It's less than a minute.
Script. True story. I never told the story. In the first round, first championship, in the first round,
This
I
is
forget
Shaq
who we're playing.
talking on
I hear Phil
Funny
Jackson
Marco
tell Gary Vitti,
podcast.
hey, get us some hotels in Indiana because that's who we're going to play in the finals. This is like before game one in the finals, and like it didn't hit me until we got to Indiana.
Or maybe he just knew that they were the best team in the East.
I don't know. I'm just telling you what I heard the man say. We haven't even played one game yet. They were back at me. He's like, "Yeah, get us some, hotel rooms in Indiana. I don't want to stay in Indiana. I want to stay on the, outside of Indiana."
Are you happy they cashed?
So that's a big podcast.
Right.
Funny
And,
Marco.
and
Go ahead.
and I think that kind of makes the point that I started off with, right? So Indiana's playing whoever. Phil Jackson's been in the league 1,000 years. He's probably like, yo, Indiana's going to win that series. So because I've been a coach in this league for however long, I play in Indiana all the time in the regular season. Hotels are going to be hard to come by. And I don't want to stay at a hotel in Indiana. I want to be outskirts or whatever. So I'm having our travel people set up the stuff now. Get us a hotel here, so that way we're ready to go. But any team, especially in a league like the NBA, where it's a conference finals and it's not like the NFL where the Super Bowl location is predetermined 3 years in advance. You know what I'm saying? You don't know, am I going to Indiana or am I going to Atlanta? Right. And so any travel person worth their salt would be saying, I need to make sure I got our arrangements set up in both Indiana and Atlanta. So that way, whichever outcome it is, we're good to go already. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing like in government when they move the president or whatever. They already got the travel set up for his next 3 trips like 2 weeks in advance or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think there's anything to see here.
So I believe in sports, right? I believe that there's scripting, right? Especially even, and I told you guys, I've been saying this here for years with the betting. I just don't think it's to the extent of wrestling, right? Like with wrestling, you get the full outcome, and without a shadow of a doubt, if they say Roman Reigns is going to win the chip, he's going to win the chip. You know what I mean? Like, I think that the NBA, here's the one thing that makes me think it's not, though, before I get to that. Indiana and OKC makes no sense for the NBA to have that as a finals. Not when you have New York at that level already there, right? Like, I could see if, there's a way for it, right? I do think that there was probably a conversation that said, yo, we need to bring this Knicks game to a game 6 or a game 7, or potentially allow for New York to be in the finals. I don't doubt that there was a conversation behind the scenes of that. I just don't know that it's communicated to the teams or to the players and reality, right? Because players are prideful about what they do. These guys love what they do. And so I don't know that they're going to cooperate. And you have to worry about the people that are not making that big money out there selling the story of it being scripted and really changing things. So I do think that there's, you can call it scripting, if you will, but I think there's some I think they play a part. I think there's some impact,
I'm there.
we'll call it.
I'm there with you. I don't like that's a perfect analogy. Like it's not wrestling where the outcome is predetermined, but I do think that the NBA has its thumb on the scale, and I feel like where you see it at is in the officiating. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Where
I was just gonna say that. I was just
they
gonna say
come
that.
out and you start seeing these foul calls, and it's like, yo, what the hell is going on? And it just feels like they're pushing this game to a certain result because they want a game 6 or they wanted to go game 7. Not necessarily that the NBA cares who the final winner is, but it's like, damn, this series is good. We got to get another game out of it because if it's Indiana and OKC, the ratings are probably going to be down. So let's get one more game in this conference final to kind of milk it a little bit or whatever. And this may not be coming down from the NBA because I mean obviously it would be illegal as hell, right? But I think that there's an understanding, somewhere in the NBA, and somehow the officials get the memo, the wink and the nod. Hey, you know what I mean? Like, it'd be kind of cool if we got a game 6. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah. The other thing about, the pivot from that, the conspiracy part, I'm gonna say though, I the NBA has to officiating has to get better. Because the way that they call these games, and I was just talking to somebody about Jason Tatum and the push-offs, and just the way that they were calling the Knicks
Jalen
series.
Brunson.
Yeah, I mean, you go from Detroit to where they all are playing football against each other, right?
Right.
To Indiana, where Indiana was playing tackle football some games against the Knicks. But it's like, dude, we some of these officials, I mean, Tim Donahue, whoever that was, he's always ever since he came out and said what he said, I can't look at these guys the same anymore. Like they have to do a better job in making things consistent for the NBA. I always say, to me, it's the easiest of all the professional sports to officiate, just for the simple fact you got less people. It's not as dangerous as a hockey. It's not as dangerous as football. It's not as fast as a football. Bigger margin, more people. And baseball, baseball probably might be a little easier, other than the fact that the ball is hard to see sometimes. It's hard when you're behind the plate. But NBA is like they gotta be more consistent with what they're doing, and not tied into the conspiracy part of things, but it's just like, yo, sometimes this shit is just a little outrageous. The officiating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think all sports they got to get better. Football,
yeah,
football is probably
definitely.
the biggest one.
They got to get better and all. And in the NBA, I think part of it too is just the I think they need to start with the BS files. The
Yeah.
player jerking their head back, thing. They go to hold and just say, "Hey!" And then the refs call a foul. Oh, he screamed out. He must have gotten
Or
hit. You
throwing
know what I'm
throwing
saying?
their arms up.
Yeah, so they got. I think they need to clean that stuff up, man. And they've tried with the whole, you can get a fine or whatever for
Bullshit. But
like flops and stuff like that.
they're not
But
enforcing that shit, yo.
right, any if they were, it's like you know Jason Tatum makes $60 million a season. You're gonna
Right.
fine him $5,000. He's gonna be
Right.
like, man, I'm never gonna do that again. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to feed my kids now. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
true.
Like,
And the other
it's
thing,
just a joke.
the other thing about the officiating that I was thinking about as y'all were talking, and I think the NFL, I think for what the league is. And I mean, again, you got the mid judge, you got the umpire. These guys are in the mix of that shit. So it's a lot more difficult to me to get right, especially you got double the players and you got such a bigger radius of space, right? But with the NBA, you have these challenges, and we've seen multiple times during the playoffs. The challenge was actually right, and the NBA still went the other way. So it's like, at least in the NFL, you get the call from New York. They're like, nah, bro, you're wrong. Overturn it. NBA still not getting it right.
Yeah, I think the other thing that the NBA has to do is they have to find a way for fouls to scale, right? Like size can't play a part. You can't see Big Cat get hit and then see, I don't know, I'm thinking of somebody small. We'll call it Nemhard or something like that, right? Get hit
Dort.
the exact same way, or Dort, and they don't get the foul. You know what I'm saying? Like, or they do get the foul and Big Cat doesn't get it because he's so damn big. There was so many times at the tail end of that Knicks series where Cat was on the floor, like literally on the ground. And sure, maybe some of that was flopping, maybe some of that's because he's big and goofy and you know just a weirdo. Like Cat is weird. I've seen somebody say that he's built like a woman with his hips. But still, nonetheless, there was a lot of times where he was hit, and we see that all the time. Joker's bleeding. Like this dude's arm, he got blood running down his arm, and he don't get, he's not getting the fouls. And I think it's because they don't know how to judge it from a size standpoint. They're looking at a smaller guy hitting a bigger guy and not giving him the call. On the flip side of it, these smaller guys get hit and they get the call immediately. The whistle blows as soon as they get touched. So I think they have to find a way to adjust that, in my opinion. Speaking of Shaq, though, I was watching. He's got a show on Netflix. You guys probably scrolled right by it because I did for 2 weeks, and then I started to watch it yesterday. It's called Power Moves,
Hmm.
and it's about him becoming the president over Reebok, and AI is the vice president, and they're trying to rebuild
Hmm.
that brand. I'm about 3 episodes. No, I'm lying. I'm about 7 episodes in now. I think there might be one. He also calls in his son, as part of the team and stuff. But it's actually really interesting, man. It's not a bad show. It's kind of following him around. It shows how they got spoiler alert, how they got Angel Reese as brand spokesman for Reebok and some of the others that they've gone after. It's also interesting to see what I learned from it is that, you know, the playbook is to go after these young kids, these kids that are still in high school before they even get to college, and trying to find that next talent versus throwing your budget at the guys that are already superstars. So it's pretty good, man. You guys should check it out. I think you guys like it. It's 30-minute watch each episode, but it's not bad, man.
I saw the trailer for it, and I thought it was very interesting, and I liked what I saw. I also liked that Shaq. Speaking of Shaq, this guy from all accounts of people. I was just watching the podcast with Peter Guns talked about how Shaq bought his mother a house. Shaq saying, "Yo, I'm gonna take on this brand at Reebok, but AI got to be involved."
Hmm.
Shaq is a real one, man. He's one of those rich people that throughout his life has you hear nothing or mostly good stuff about how he does business and brings other people to the table. So, shout out to him for the good that he does, do. I'm not saying, everything, but some of these things are definitely dope.
Yeah, it's a good watch, man. I think you would appreciate it, VP. It's a lot of back end boardroom stuff, which is cool, like seeing them meet up. I also appreciate to your point, EJ, the culture that he creates at this place. You know what I mean? He comes in as the president. He's like, look, man, from an athlete standpoint, you guys are going to drive this, for the people he's going after. You guys are going to drive this. This is your brand. You have to like it. Like, there's a lot to it, man. And, outside of the fact that Shaq shook Trump's hand because whatever, I respect Shaq in every other way.
Yeah, Reebok, I think he can make a turnaround with Reebok, and honestly, the right way to do it is to your point and to their point is going after the young kids that's up and coming, finding that guy, that next one, and making it his brand. Because you know what it takes, right, to move the culture. You just got to get the
Hmm.
black folk to buy into it. You know what I mean? Once you get the black folk to buy into it, it's a wrap. It's just amazing, right? When you look at that Jordan movie and how he basically saved Nike, all the way around. This
Hmm.
one guy comes out with a shoe, the black community adopts it, and it takes off. And black people, even though we don't make up the majority of the population, we make up the majority of the spending. And if we make it cool, it's gonna sell. So I think it's gonna be interesting and dope to see what Shaq does with Reebok. I think they can make the turnaround. I think they definitely can make the turnaround. So
No, I think that you're definitely right. Black people can definitely set culture, but I also think part of it is attaching yourself to the right person, right? Because I mean, we see all these people got stuff. Steph got the deal with Under Armour. Halliburton has a deal with I think Puma, I want to say. Um, so everybody has like a deal with one company or the other. The thing is, if you're the company, like, did you pick, just like in a Jordan movie, did you pick the right person? Because remember, they were looking at Jordan, they were looking at I can't remember who the two other guys were they were looking at in the movie to make like the signature shoe for or whatever. But it was three guys coming out of college. It was Jordan and two other dudes or whatever, and they
Right.
ended up going with Jordan, and the rest is history or whatever. So yeah, you can go out and find as much talent as you want, but if those guys become nothing, then I mean, Nike probably felt like they hit a hole in one, to use a butchered metaphor or whatever, when they did their deal with Ja. And then Ja, you know, does all this gun shit or whatever, and they're probably like, whoa, you know, and I don't think they've backed off from him, but they're not putting him out front like they were, 2-3 years ago. You know what I'm saying? And
That's
so I think that's a big part of it is not just getting people early, but just making sure you land the right guy. And it's hard, that's more of an art than a science to land the right
yeah.
guy.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I even think, to your point, attaching yourself to the right person from a leadership standpoint, right? So you got Shaq who walks in here. He's immediately throwing. He's been in business rooms, right? Like Shaq is the business, right? He's probably the biggest business athlete that we know. Outside of maybe LeBron.
Yeah,
And
I
you
would
could
say Jordan,
tell,
LeBron.
right? And you could tell where he's trying to get AI comfortable and stuff like that. Like it's a good watch, man. It's absolutely a good watch. And you should check it out. I think I got one episode left on that.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
I just saw a report from Shams that the Knicks are going to interview J.R. Smith. We don't even need to talk about that. But it's fine. While we're here, since we talked about that show, we may as well do Benji's real quick. You been watching anything else, VP, or anything new?
For me, I started watching your show, AP Bio. I don't know. It's just okay to me. Like it's just but there's times that I find it really funny, but most times it's just okay. It's been okay enough for me to keep watching, so I haven't like put it down. But it's not like, oh my god, this show is so great. You know what I mean? But
it's a lot of seasons.
Yeah, like I think I'm in season 2 right now. I think if I remember correctly, I'm somewhere in season 2. But I like the cast. The thing I think, and again, I say this all the time. When you watch TV, when you watch movies, whatever, you got to put yourself in the dynamic of the universe that they're creating for this show or whatever. But sometimes that's hard, which is why I couldn't get down with Cobra Kai or whatever. I just can't. These roaming gangs of karate kids or whatever. Like it was ridiculous to me.
What?
But with this show, what was the part that I'm finding like hard to believe is he goes to this AP biology class. I don't know if you watch it at all, EJ. And so the premise is that the guy who's the teacher, he got fired from Harvard. He was like a philosophy teacher. So they hire him back at his old high school to teach advanced placement biology. So the philosophy teacher who has a PhD in philosophy is teaching AP bio, right? All the kids in there are like total fucking nerds or whatever. And they're pissed off because he comes in the first day and he's like, look, I'm not going to be teaching you any biology or whatever. So just shut up. And as long as you don't say anything, you'll get an A. And I'm like, it's no way, even if half the kids were down for it, the other kids aren't going to be down for it. And I can't imagine them going to their parents saying, hey, this dude is not teaching us anything. I'm going to be unprepared. Like they showed one of the kids' lockers and they take AP everything, AP calculus, AP bio, AP, chemistry, AP, you know what I mean? And so I just can't imagine they're like, oh, it's fine that my one teacher doesn't teach me anything because I'm going to get an A at the end. You know what I'm saying?
Yo,
so
how you dissect that, but watch dragons and fucking lightsabers and shit and be like, yo, this shit right here.
Because the whole suspension of disbelief is like, okay, this is a fantasy. Yeah, like I know dragons aren't real and lightsabers aren't real and the force and all that kind of stuff like that. I understand that there's some guy from another planet who can fly, and all that kind of, there's some billionaire who builds a rocket suit. You know what I mean? Like I get all of that or whatever. It's fantasy. But in this show, they're putting they're putting this guy in like this very real situation where he's a teacher. And it's just the way that my mind works is I'm like, they got a guy with a PhD in philosophy teaching biology. That just doesn't make sense on its face. Like when I watched the first episode, I thought he was a sub. I didn't realize he was the actual teacher. You know what I'm saying? So like if he was a sub, I get it. Like if they made it to where he was a sub and then he became permanent because of some kind of budget situation or something like that, I'm like, okay, the school system fucked up. I get it. But they hired him to be the guy. You know what I'm saying?
All right,
And
all
that
right.
shit don't make
Go
no
on to your
sense.
next show. Go on to your next show. We don't need this.
We finished up Survivor. I had the season finale of Survivor last week. That was it was pretty good. Um, Amazing Race. We've been watching that. We didn't realize Amazing Race had came on, so the whole season's already done. We're kind of like watching it, like getting caught up or whatever. So I've been watching that. On Amazing Race, man, they got, you know me. I on all of my reality shows I watch, I go in rooting for whoever the black person is or whatever. The black couple, like, there's only one black couple left on Amazing Race, and I can't fucking stand them. Like the girl is okay. Her husband, yo, this dude's a piece of shit, dog. Like, I feel like the show, like, you know how they do like the little confessionals or whatever. It feels like the show is trying to like push a narrative, like, oh, they're so happy. He's such a good dude, you know. And then when you see the challenges, it's like this dude is a piece of shit, dog. Like he be talking to her any kind of way, you know. Like in the episode we watched yesterday, like he has some kind of thing where, like, I guess he gets like heat exhausted like really fast. Like he has like some kind of issue when it gets like too hot or whatever. His body starts shutting down and shit. And so he's shutting down and he's trying to drink water and stuff, and they're walking. It's hot as fuck. They're like in Bali in Indonesia, and he's like dying. And the chick is like, "I got you, babe. It's okay. We can do this. You got this." You know, like encouragement kind of shit. And he looks at, like, the whole time she's talking, he's going like this: "Can you be quiet? Can you shut up? Can you be quiet?" And then they do a confessional where she's like, you know, he just has this passion inside of him where he just wants to win. You know, I'm like, no, this dude's an asshole. You know what I'm saying?
That's very
Why would you
specific.
go out? Why would you go on that show if you know you got that issue?
Exhaustion, right?
Because they probably because these people are idiots, man. It's the same thing. That same couple, they had to go in this episode. They had to do this thing where they had to go out in the ocean. And she was like, when she was 5, she almost drowned, and she's kind of had like PTSD to swimming, like for the rest of her whole life. And I'm like, if you've ever seen The Amazing Race, there's 3 things I can guarantee you're gonna do. You're gonna do something in the ocean. You're gonna do some kind of bungee jump off some tall ass building or mountain or some shit or bridge, and you're gonna do skydiving. I guarantee it. So if you have some kind of problem with this thing, hello. Like, it's like the people who go on Survivor and they're like, I don't know how to make a fire. Like, what the hell are you talking about, yo?
That's pretty judgy of you.
No, it's just a fact of life.
Did either of you watch EJ, did you ever get to Sneaky Links?
Yes, I watched that.
Did you get to finish
I
it?
enjoyed it. Yeah, I watched it. I enjoyed it. It was exactly what we thought it would be.
I feel like you belong on that show.
No, I don't. I don't have anything remotely to that.
Okay.
I
We
don't have
can move
anything
on.
remotely to that. No, no, sir.
You've been watching anything? Well, the boy, what's it, Colt? The boy Colt was in there just
Oh,
smashing, getting
just
to
going
it,
ham. Yeah.
just getting to it. Yeah, Colt, Brandon too. Brandon got some cheeks. I think that was his name. But it always amazes me when I watch these shows with these suburban people, like how much they're just whores, yo. Like they just be like, in multiple cases on that show, like they was laid up and ready to go after they first met somebody within, same day, it appears. Now, I know when you're watching the show, it's reality. They change it around a little bit and make it, for dramatic effect and stuff, but
I mean, they're young. They're
whatever.
young, man. You forget what it's like to be young without any responsibilities. They ain't got no responsibilities. They're young. Shit. They like, yo, you're hot, I'm hot, we got alcohol, let's do it.
True. Good point. You been watching anything, EJ? Anything new? Oh, Animal Kingdom is on Netflix too, by the way. Now.
Yeah, I gotta see if they have the final seasons on there because that was what I missed at one point. But I was trying to think of something new that I watched. BMF is back on. It's trash. Um,
Shocker.
yeah, that's just bad. Um,
I kind of knew it would be, and I feel like it's I also feel like I don't know that 50 is super dedicated to it now that he's had the falling out with, Meech and them. So,
yeah,
uh,
yeah. And I just think, and I kind of question. I'm like, you know, I kind of question their story. You know what I mean? Because just all of the stuff that's gone on, it's not a lot to it. It seems like they're trying to like embellish a lot of stuff, or like episode one starts off, they broke some guy out of a Mexican prison, and they doing this shit in like Gucci sweatshirt. Like, yeah, it means like this shit looks ridiculous. Like these the same two dudes who couldn't get rid of Lamar in Detroit, but they broke a guy out of Mexican prison. Like it just doesn't match up for me. So
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, there's a new movie out, a new Predator animated movie out I want to watch. And then there's a new series based off the Alien movie that's out also. So I want to catch those too. But other than that, I haven't really watched anything new that I can think of off the top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched the Shaq show. I started watching those Netflix like awards. I think it's called To Doom on Netflix. That shit's trash. Feels forced and kind of whack. Um, and that's really it. I want to see the joint that De Niro played the two characters in.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
oh, well, I don't.
Alto Nights or something.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what it's called.
Yeah. It wasn't. It, first of all, it wasn't accurate to the actual story, which I don't know why that was the way that was, but. Rob De Niro, he's always gonna be good, but it's just very slow paced. It wasn't very good at all. It wasn't. It could have been way better. De Niro's always gonna be De Niro, but yeah, it wasn't good.
I have to assume now you're getting to a point where you're selling a name with De Niro because he's old. You know what I'm saying? So there's only but so much you can do from mobility standpoint and all of that stuff. So um I'll check it out just because it's De Niro and but I think that's all that I really have on the list right now. It's summertime, so we know that TV kind of goes away a bit. I've been watching The Neighborhood is what I've been watching as like my time filler. The joint was said, and that should be catching me off guard, and I'll be cracking up at some of the stuff. Sometimes they go a little overboard and it'd be a little corny, but they be catching me off guard, man. Said is funny, and Pam from Martin, they be getting me at time, and that white dude, from the New Girl, he funny as hell too. Um, you know what else I've been watching? Like, I guess I'm getting old, yo. I'm old, so I be sitting there and I be catching myself watching the news sometimes. And
Mm.
I know like this is a normal VP thing, but I catch myself there at times watching the news. I'm like, why am I watching the news? But anyway, as I've been watching the news, um it's now going from just social media to TV where
Mm.
these ICE raids are being covered. And yesterday I saw on the nightly news that they were rolling around Orlando. Um, Last week, I saw that, or I spoke to my father-in-law who works at, does construction, and he said that they came to a construction site and they scooped up a bunch of people. Um, and then you got whatever's going on over there in California, which is out of control. And I just don't know where we are right now. I think we're almost getting to a point of we're going to be at a point of no return soon in this country.
Yeah, it's I mean, this is This is what, a lot of folks who think the way that I think we're talking about before the election, where we're saying this guy wants to be a dictator. He's taking us down the path of authoritarianism. And people said that, we were overreacting, and all these pieces of paper that we have were going to protect us and all this kind of stuff like that, and here we are, and what I think is happening is that I think this is just a trial run. So, he is using the National Guard out in California. They're firing, rounds at people. They keep emphasizing that it's the rounds that they categorize as less than lethal, which means they're still lethal. They're just, not as, you know what I mean? But all kind of smoke grenades and tear gas and shit like that. Totally illegal or whatever, because, in his proclamation or his memorandum that he sent out, he invokes Title 10 USC 12406, which allows him to nationalize the National Guard. And this law essentially says whenever one, the United States or any commonwealth or possession is invaded or is in danger of invasion by a foreign national, that's so it doesn't fall there. Number two, there's a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. These people were just protesting, so I don't think that you can actually classify it there. And then three, the president is unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. I think that's probably where they're trying to say he can't, like people are preventing ICE from doing these raids, and they're trying to use that. But it goes on to say, after those three buckets of like how you can nationalize the guard, it says that the president may call into federal service members of the United States, members and units of the National Guard of any state in such numbers as he considers necessary to repel the invasion, suppress the rebellion, or execute those laws. Orders for these purposes shall be issued through the governors of the states, or in the case of the District of Columbia, through the commanding general of the National Guard of the District of Columbia. Gavin Newsom has already said that he does not agree with this, and he hasn't issued any such orders for the California National Guard to be deployed, and yet here we are. So what's likely going to have to happen is, I'm not sure if it's happened already, is that the governor is going to need to file suit in court to get the courts to block this shit. But I think that this is a prequel for what we're going to see next week. On the 14th, they're having this big military parade in DC to celebrate Trump's birthday. He claims it's just a military parade celebrating our troops and shit like that. But it's one of these like North Korean, Russian style things, rolling tanks down the street, showing off weapons and all this kind of shit like that. And there's going to be massive protests or whatever. They're having this thing they're calling the No Kings protests or whatever. And it's going to be something happening nationwide where you're going to see hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people protesting across the country. And I think what we're seeing in California is a preview to next week, to where they're going to call these protests, some kind of rebellion or insurrection, and then try to use the military, enact some kind of form of martial law or something like that to try to put down protesters. And so, the last thing I'll say real quick before y'all jump in on this thing is the what can we do part of it, right? And I think people need to continue using their voices. They need to continue protesting or whatever, but it can't just be us. We need people who are in the opposition, i.e. Democrats, to start doing something as well. These Democrats don't have power, right? But what they do have right now is the threat of what they'll do once they gain power. And I wish what we would start seeing is Democrats in Congress coming out saying, everybody who's participating in this shit, when we take back power, you're going to be held to account. You know what I mean? And don't think that when we get back in charge, we're gonna just only look forward. We're not gonna be looking back in the past, shit like that. So you better make sure everything that you're doing is above board and is happening legally. You know what I'm saying? Gavin Newsom, who is the commander in chief of the California National Guard, just like every other governor of the whatever state they're the governor of, is the commander in chief of that guard, should be going to his commanding officers in the Guard saying, you got these orders from the Pentagon. I'm telling you that these orders are illegal, and you keep executing this shit, you better lawyer up. You know what I mean? Because I'm going to be removing people from command, and we're going to be prosecuting folks, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And I think that people keep sitting on the sideline like, oh, it's nothing that we can do. It's Trump being Trump. Oh, we're going to go to court, blah, blah, blah. And then there's no consequences on the back end. You know what I mean?
Right.
This guy from Maryland, Kilmar Obrego Garcia, who the Trump administration admits in court that they accidentally sent to that place in El Salvador, right? The court tells them, you got to bring this guy back. They're telling Congress, they're on TV, he's never coming back. We're not doing, even though the court said we have to, we ain't doing shit. Literally defying court orders. They just brought him back the other day, right? But they spent 6 weeks not doing what the courts told them to do or whatever, right? There has to be some right, but there has to be some consequences for that on the back end. And I think Democrats need to be out there saying this kind of shit, saying we're not gonna just let this shit slide or whatever. When we get back in charge, there's gonna be hell to pay over this shit, and they're not doing that. And so it seems like there's just the people that are out in protest who are upset, and the people who are the electeds who actually have the power to do anything are sitting on the sideline.
Do you think they don't say that because then you get a situation where where Trump just starts pardoning people involved?
I mean, it could be, but I don't think that that's what it is. I think what's happening is I've said this to you guys a couple of times on the podcast, and you guys aren't politically plugged in enough to see it. But I told you guys there's a war happening in the Democratic Party right now on the direction of the party. And on one side, you have the AOC folks, the people who believe the way that I just talked about, we need to move forward, saying this is what we need to do. And you have people on the other side who are on this what's being characterized as like this abundance movement or whatever. I don't know if you see that at all in your political diet. Oh, this shit from this guy named Ezra Klein and this other guy, something Thompson. I can't remember his name right now. And this is kind of the battle that's happening right now is, do we need to go down this road of like where we're fighting, where we're talking about taking these big swings on policy and things like that? Or do we need to go down this abundance road, which is like, oh, we just got to cut the red tape and just get things, and, take these small measured steps that the people really want, play it down the middle, be safe. And this whole abundance shit is just basically repackaged Clintonism from the 90s or whatever. You know what I mean? No big government, just make sure things are functioning right. And it's a bunch of bullshit or whatever, but that's the battle lines that are happening right now. And, we don't know who's won yet. And I think that's why Democrats are kind of, keeping their powder dry, because they don't know what direction they're going in. And this is part of the problem with Democrats, with elected Democrats, I mean, is that instead of saying, this is what I believe in my heart, and so I'm going to be out there, using my voice, using my platform to fight for these things, to make sure that this is what we do as a party, they're sitting back waiting for these consultants to tell them, well, hey, I did this focus group, and then this is how we should really be doing things or whatever. You know what I mean? The same people who lost Kamala the election, the same people who were telling us, no, Joe Biden is, he's fucking awesome. This guy needs to stay on the ticket. The same people who worked for Hillary Clinton and lost her the election. The same people who were running these campaigns during the Obama years that saw 1,000 legislative seats lost during the Obama years, whether they were state houses, state senate, governorships, mayoral seats, city councils, school boards, etc. 1,000 seats lost by Democrats during the Obama years or whatever. And it's how we got to these, super crazy Republicans, because they basically took over everything during the Obama years. And now we're kind of paying the cost for it. But we're still listening to those same consultants who lost all this shit saying, you need to listen to us. And this is how we're going to take back power. This is how we win. You know what I mean? And so, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think the biggest piece is I think he's starting to panic, and I think he's panicking because Elon Musk is unhinged. Elon Musk is unhinged, and I think now he's in a battle with Elon with all that money. Um, and Elon is fearless, and not only that, but if he truly is on the spectrum as he claims,
He
um,
is.
and I think he is. I do think he is, but
Yeah,
I
I
won't
think he has
say anything.
Asperger's, I believe.
There's no telling what can or won't come out of his mouth slash tweet, space. And I think Trump is afraid of that. And no, I mean, he already started with the Epstein thing, right? And then Elon made, said, without me, you wouldn't have won this. And then what happens next, right? What more can be said? And I'm sure there's a lot more. Trump came out and said, if you start backing Democrats, it's going to get nasty for you to Elon. I think he's panicking because I think Trump might have let out more than he should have around Elon, thinking that he was going to be just a loyal, continue to be loyal to the fault. And I think there's a problem here. And I think for him, and this is probably his first steps into the martial law space where he can then say, well, here we are. And this is until I say so, until I say otherwise, right?
So, real quick, EJ, before you go on the Elon thing, I disagree with that, and the reason why is that Elon can't do anything to impact Trump. He can talk some shit online or whatever, but the party is still with Elon. With Trump, right? The voters. So Elon can say what he wants or whatever, but he can't really do anything to Trump. He can promise to back Democrats or whatever, which I also think is a problem. The fact that you have some Democrat, like Nikki Fried, who is the chairwoman of the Florida Democratic Party, is literally on Twitter saying, "Hey, Elon, you can come support these Democrats and help us win Florida." Like, we just spent the last few months talking about this guy doing Nazi
How shitty
salutes
he was.
and
Yeah.
how he's destroying the government. He's cutting off, research for kids with cancer, and he helped gut suicide prevention programs for veterans, and he did all this stuff to shit on these federal workers and stuff like that. And now we as a party are saying, "Hey, we love some of your money." Like, that is insane to me. You know what I mean?
But then
It's
you can
complete
also spin
bullshit.
that to say that he was the fall guy. Now, it's not true, I don't think. But I also think they're probably thinking, how do we get Republicans are dumb, right? Republicans are dumb. MAGA people are dumb. And they're going to believe what they see on the internet. I mean, I've already seen, and I'm sure you've seen it too. You've seen some of those far way out there MAGA people that are immediately questioning Trump based on some of the stuff that Elon has said, with the
Mhm.
whole Epstein thing and things like that, right? They've got large bases and their people are sheep. They follow, right? And so I'm thinking maybe people are thinking, well, if we get Elon to continue to say stuff, that these people are going to open up their Twitter or their X or whatever they are, and maybe some of these right wing sites and see the headline and start to veer away from Trump. And maybe they won't go, Democrat, but maybe they're thinking this is a path away from Trump, even if it's piece of shit Vance. And then they probably think Vance is easier to deal with than Trump, in my opinion.
I mean, I get that, but I don't. I think, one, I always wonder with Trump. I look at everything as being a distraction, right? So that whole like Twitter fight with him and Elon. What else is happening that they're distracting us from in the background that we're not seeing? Because this news story is taking up all the oxygen, right? That remains to be seen at this point, right? But the reason why I think this whole Trump Elon thing is it's more of a media creation, like a media like firestorm than an actual firestorm, is because Elon is a person. Yes, he's the richest man in the world. He owns Twitter, huge communication platform, et cetera, et cetera. But Elon is just still some guy. He's just a citizen. Trump is the president of the most powerful country in the world, right? Trump can use the government against Elon. There are reports that Elon came here illegally, right? He came here on a student visa, overstayed his visa, blah, 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 end up becoming a citizen, right? Trump can have his immigration stuff reopened to look at. Oh, maybe he did restate his visa. Let's deport his ass back to South Africa or whatever, right? Elon came out on Thursday and said that he was gonna decommission the Dragon, which is a SpaceX program that they use to take stuff
Mhm.
to the International Space Station. Trump, there are laws. I mean, he can invoke the Defense Production Act and actually take over SpaceX from Elon, literally take it from him and make it be owned by the government because they deem that it's in the national interest, national security reasons, etc. Starlink, which is another Elon Musk venture that helps with communication. They put satellites all around the world to help people communicate in rural areas, either in the United States, in Ukraine, places like that or whatever. Same thing. Government can take that shit from him. Hey, Elon Musk is rich as fuck. Are we sure that his taxes are being filed correctly? Maybe we need to do an audit or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So there are tons of ways that Trump can hurt Elon, that Elon can't do back to Trump or whatever, right? And so that's why I don't think that this thing is as big as folks are making it out to be or whatever. But I also think that Democrats, for a guy that we just spent months saying is a Nazi, is criminally, fucking with the government, is literally got blood on his hands from cutting off funding that we send around the world and stuff that we do within the United States or whatever. Like some of the cuts that they've made in the federal government, I'm experiencing them myself with the VA, you know what I'm saying, with delays and things like that, and stuff that used to just happen fast that is now taking weeks, sometimes a month to get shit done or whatever. A lot of this stuff was laid at Elon's feet, rightfully so. Trump as well, it should be. I don't think it should just be on Elon or whatever. But to now say, oh, now that this guy's a free agent or presumed to be a free agent, we as Democrats should go and say, hey man, pick us. We like some of that money or whatever like that. He's off limits to me. I'm not with it.
I like
Like the
a
Knicks
lot
with
of what
Giannis.
I like a lot of what VP said. Holding the party accountable, man. I mean, and then it speaks to, I've always appreciated VP's, moral compass as politics is concerned, because what Freed has done, that basically just says, we're gonna go to the highest bidder out there, and I think the moral fabric of this country has been on trial. I mean, it's always been on trial, in my opinion, for its entire existence with slavery and everything. But we have regressed, man. We're at a place right now where, all humanity, all regard for citizenship, for democracy, and VP said all of this stuff was going to happen. Where you just taking people from their homes, no due process, you're ignoring the courts, and VP is absolutely right. We have a party of people that we elected. We have a Congress. We have all of these people that we elected one form or fashion that are supposed to protect what this government is supposed to be about, and they're not doing shit, man. And it's kind of sad. And come next week, I'm glad he's having the parade on a Saturday because I'm not gonna be there. I was hoping he was gonna do it during the week so we can have an excuse to kind of like not go in. But it's just nasty, man, and it's a scary place. I don't know how we come back as a nation. Now he's doing the
Is
bans.
Lee Harvey Oswald still alive?
I don't think so. No.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, man, I don't know where we come back as a nation. I don't know where we go. And to VP's point, you would want to hear the Democratic Party say the things that they should be saying. And that's even if they ever get back into power, because like he said, they can't even figure out their own shit right now. So, I mean, who
Right.
knows what's going to happen in some years from now? So it's pretty scary.
Chuck Schumer, who's the Democratic senator from New York, the Senate minority leader, he's the highest ranking elected Democrat in the country. I mean, I guess you could say him and Hakeem Jeffries are equivalent or whatever. Most people put more power in the Senate than they do the House or whatever, right?
Right.
Where's Chuck Schumer right now with all this shit? He's on a book tour. He wrote a book a while ago. He was supposed to go on a book tour before, but there was all these protesters that were going to be interrupting his book tour over his support for Israel. So he canceled the book tour, and now he's back on it now. And what he's doing in this book tour, it's about trying to stamp out anti-Semitism in the Democratic Party, right? There are literally people being rounded up in the streets. Some Americans, right? It's not this shit is, and this is the thing that we've
in
been
New York
saying from the
City.
jump,
In
right?
New York
It's
City,
not.
no way.
It's not just going to be illegal immigrants, right? Because what Trump them said was, "Oh, we're going to get rid of all the criminals," right? But you know what criminals do well? They try to stay under the radar because they're criminals. So they are going for the low hanging fruit. The people at the construction sites, the people at Home Depot, the people doing
At their
Tour, tourists,
agriculture. Right.
tourists.
hearings,
They're literally going to court
their
hearings with
citizenship
people who
hearings.
they had a case in I think it happened here in Florida, I want to say, where they had a guy who was facing some kind of misdemeanor BS charge. I don't want to say BS, I don't know if the person did or not, but let's just say it was like broken tail light or some crap like that. They literally went in and had the government drop the charges against this guy. So once the case got dismissed and he came out the courtroom, they could arrest him and deport him. Why? Because while this guy is in the court process for this broken tail light or whatever it was for, he's subject to due process. So we get rid of the court case so that way we can just deport him with no due process or whatever. And this is how they're doing this stuff, right? And you have to ask yourself, right, if you're a Trump supporter, one of the nicknames that Barack Obama had when he was president was he was the deporter in chief. Barack Obama deported more illegal immigrants than any other president in our history. He deported more people in his first 4 years than George Bush did in 8. He deported more over his whole 8 years than Trump did during his whole 4 years, as well as his time in now with all these people that they've deported so far, right? But he never had to invoke the Insurrection Act or all this illegal shit he's never had to do none of that stuff to deport all those millions of people that he deported or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But these people don't seem to care about that. It's just that these folks are here illegally, their skin is brown, and they gotta go, and it's hard to feel sorry. Like I feel sorry for these people who are caught up in this shit. But then when I see people like the woman, I saw a story yesterday in the Miami Herald about the Florida woman who was the head of the Latinos for Trump or Latinas for Trump movement, talking about how she's disappointed in Trump's immigration policy or whatever. It's like, yo, kiss my ass, yo. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to hear that shit from you. You know what I mean? Like people like me, and again, I don't know this fucking woman or whatever, but I'm pretty sure there are people who think like me who have access to this woman, whether she was on some panel, some TV show, whether it was on social media, whatever, who were telling her the same shit that I'm saying. This is how it's going to happen. This is what's going to go down, blah, 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 blah. And these people are telling you, no. Everything's going to be awesome. Trump's got it. He's good. I promise you. I cross my heart. To all those fucking Arab folks up in Michigan who were so fucking concerned about how Palestinians were being treated in Gaza. So they sat home or they went and voted and left the presidential line blank because they were so pissed off about what was happening with Israel and the Palestinians that they said, fuck America. I now say, fuck you. You know what I'm saying? To those fucking Cubans who thought, oh, no, we're going to be good. We got to get these fucking Haitians out of here or whatever. Look at you now. You know what I'm saying? And those folks who, we can't vote for Kamala because she's a fascist. She's going to be a dictator because you listen to some AM Spanish radio that told you some bullshit or whatever. Look at you now. Same thing with the Venezuelans that he's deporting. All those folks in those 500,000 people of Haitians, Cubans, Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, they're all being deported now or whatever. You know what I mean? It was their own people that did it to them. You know what I'm saying? The only thing that I've adjusted my stance on is I've been on the thing of we got to just make sure we're taking care of Black people, all this kind of stuff like that or whatever. And I listened to a conversation on Tiffany Cross's podcast. You guys know I love her podcast with Angela Ray and Andrew Gillum, Angela Rye, however you say her name. And they were talking about this topic about Black people saying we got to just look inward and say fuck everybody else or whatever. And Tiffany's Cross's point was, look, black people were 14% of the population. So we can't make change on our own. You know what I'm saying? And once they go through all these immigrants, who you think they're coming for next? You know what I'm saying? And so we need to ally ourselves with, not saying ally ourselves with MAGA and people like that, but the people, if you look at polling data, even though exit polls from elections are highly inaccurate or whatever, but the exit polling says 48% of the Hispanic population voted for Trump. That means 52 of the Hispanic population didn't vote for him, right? And so how do we get more allied with that 52% to get them to see things the way that we see it in order to vote the way that we think they should be voting to have our best interests in line, not just meaning our as black people, our as like people of color. You know what I mean? Those large numbers of AAIP, the Asian Americans, Pacific Islander folks who voted for Trump, those people from immigrant communities from Nicaragua, Venezuela, etc. All those folks in Florida, the Puerto Ricans who came over from Puerto Rico to Central Florida down in Osceola County and shit like that. How do we get those people to see things the way that we see it? Because since we're such a small portion of the overall American population, it's hard for us to affect change on our own. And we need allies, you know what I'm saying? And even some of our white allies, as well. But so we can't just look inward and say fuck everybody else or whatever, but it's hard not to.
I think the problem is black folks have always had that stance and that outlook. The problem is we've never been able to get those other peoples to understand that our fight should be their fight. What I mean, that's always been the problem. Asian Americans when they face injustice, Japanese Americans when they face injustice, from the internment camps, and they got reconciliation for that in some ways. They opened up their stores, they did what they did, and they said, fuck the black people. They never, it's always been the other cultures that have never been able to see that our plight and our struggle is their struggle. We know what time it is. It's always been them not understanding that we are a people, we're not white, and that's always been the oppressed in this nation. And that's been the
Mhm.
problem historically for this country.
Yeah, and I think the problem with a lot of those groups that you mentioned, I'm sorry, Steve.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the problem with a lot of those people, we've talked about this before, is that a lot of those groups, they think they're white. You know what I'm saying? Because at least
Mhm.
like with us, we can never be perceived as white, right? When when they're even
We'll never get treated as white either.
right. You know what I mean? When people look at Barack Obama, they don't see a half white, half black man. They see a black man. You
Mhm.
know what I
Black
mean?
people.
And when people look at other folks who come from interracial relationships, they don't see an interracial child or a white child. They always only see a black child. And what people in these other more fair-skinned races don't realize is that these folks who are the racists and the bigots in this country, they're never going to accept you. They're fine with you voting for their cause, right? But you're never going to be one of them because you don't look white. You know what I'm saying? And
And
and and
even further than that though, even when you just look at historically of this nation, right? When you had the Irish, the Italians, all these people that came over, I
yep,
mean, they got to remember that, yo, it wasn't that long ago when your people were subjected to
yep.
the slums of the ghettos of
No
New York.
Irish need apply.
Yeah, so people, people gotten where they've gotten, and they forgot that this old racist white rhetoric, it has some impact on you too if you really pay attention. Because
Hmm.
especially when you start talking that immigration stuff. Oh, wait a minute, your great grandmother came here illegally. Oh, wait a minute, I don't know, But again, people, to your point, people got to see the good and the humanity of everyone's struggle, and that's the problem, and that's a lot of the problem with this nation. I got mine, you better get yours. I don't really care about you.
Yeah.
I just think, those groups don't understand the difference or understand, let me not say the difference. They don't understand the similarities between racism and supremacy, right? So when you talk about racism, They hate us. They hate us because of what we look like. They hate us in general. Supremacy, I think they understand that Asians in America will never be a threat to them. You know what I mean? And so they're okay with treating them a certain way and giving them, just enough and letting them be okay. But we can cause that threat. We're seeing how the impact. I mean, today we've proven how the black dollar and how when we actually stick together, we can impact a group with the target thing, right? If we could just stay on task with that type of energy with everything, I think that's where we fall off so much. Is EJ, we talk about all the time how fickle of a people we are and how we just move on so quickly and how reactive we are. So they've been talking about this Derek Chauvin thing, and people are like, since Trump said he's not going to do it, it's not going to happen. We'll wait until it happens and then we're going to show up, as opposed to people being out there ahead of time saying, yo, be aware, this is coming. Be aware, this is coming. He's talked about it. They're thinking of it. All this fun shit that you could be doing to keep people engaged. Um, I think that's the challenge that we run into as a people, is we just move on so quickly from stuff, and we get to something, we hop in and then we hop back out, versus kind of sticking to it. And EJ, you've said in the past, we just don't have those leaders to push it forward today. We just don't. The way that our world, you know our life is here in America, I don't know, man. And it should be easier because the reach is easier today, right? If you were Malcolm X, people had to go see you. If you were MLK Jr., you had to go see him, right? Nowadays, you can get on a platform, and as long as you have the reach, as long as you have the followers, you get it shared, you can reach that many people and get a message out. But I don't know, we're struggling with it, man. We're struggling.
I
Yeah,
think
but
I
I
think
also think
to talk about what Tiffany Cross said in conjunction with you, Steve, I think both things, are true. And, I think as a people, I don't think we ever struggle with what Cross is saying. But more to what you're saying, Steve, as a people, I don't think we realize how bad off we are, right? We have people on the one side of the coin that will say, when Republicans and other people say, well, look at the black on black crime, look at the crime in inner cities. And we'll have people that will rebut and say, well, this is a systemic thing, there's crime everywhere. If you look at the numbers, white people killing people, very true. But I think people don't realize when you look at these urban cities, we had a crisis, man. We are losing youth by the day to petty violence, petty crimes. You got people that when they make it out, they don't even want to live back in their neighborhoods
Mhm.
because things are so fucked up. You got every day I turn around, DC's having this problem where at different places, youth are out here crashing out, fighting, mass fights, mass stabbings, all this shit going on. And as a community, right, we can't even begin to start to think about voting, human rights, health rights, supporting other causes when our future right now, they're not going to school, they're strung out, they're killing each other. And as a people, we choose to act as though it's not happening. The people with the education, the people that are at these CBCs and all of this stuff, all these people making their six figures and everything, that all these people I work with, they're turning a blind eye to the stuff that's going on in our communities. And we have to, at some point, get back to our communities. We have to, at some point, save the youth, save the future, because everything that we talking about doing politically, this shit ain't gonna matter in 10 years if we got smaller and smaller high school graduation classes. All these kids are on drugs. I remember being in high school, junior high school, you had people that smoked weed and did stuff, but they wasn't the majority. I'm telling you now, with kids, high school kid age, middle school kid age, these kids are doing drugs that we would have never thought we'd be doing. Popping pills, that wasn't a thing for our people. All of this stuff that's going on, we are losing the future of our people. And we got so many issues on a global, on an international, or national scale that they don't even see. They're falling right into the bullshit. You know what I mean? And we as a people, we have to begin to focus on our communities. We got to get people more educationally savvy about voting, about their rights, about their lives. I mean, but we can't even begin to do that if as a people, keep ignoring the fact that we have internal problems in our community. We got to start to save these communities, man. I was looking the other day, and in this city, and I haven't been doing as much civic work as I used to do, but I remember when we had more mentoring programs. There are barely any mentoring programs for high school students now. And it's like, what are we doing? And if we don't turn the tide and turn the card and focus on helping our people to a better station, I mean overall in life, it's going to be a long way up to even worry about the political side. And I think that's also part of the problem that VP's talking about. You have a party that ain't really being held accountable by a lot of these people because people dealing with day-to-day shit. We talked about it, Steve. They want to feel better. They don't really want to know everything. They want to feel better. And we're living in a delusional world. Black folks are in their neighborhoods. They're doing whatever they're doing. They live in life like it's whatever, and they don't see what's going on around them. And we as a people, we literally really have to get back to focusing on our people, educating them, and changing some of these conditions, man, because Black people are out here suffering, and I don't think we really know it.
Yep. Um. So when is this? When is this parade you talk about, VP?
It's on Saturday, the
Next
14th.
Saturday.
Yeah, the
All
14th.
right. Well,
Just real quick on one of the points EJ was making with the Tiffany Cross thing, and I think EJ is right that what she's talking about is something that Black people have done historically, where we've taken up other people's fights because we see it as our fight, and we hope that they would take up our fight, seeing it as their fight. Um, but I think what the point that she's making is that this time it seems different with our community where we're like, fuck all these other communities or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm doing it too. Like something happened to Hispanics. We're sending out the video that I will vote for Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Uh, somebody's complaining about what's happening with Palestinians and stuff, and people are like, yo, this you? Somebody who you see them posted pre-election. I'm not voting for Biden. I'm not voting for Harris because of boop boop boop. And everybody's like, hey, I'm sitting back, sipping my tea, saying, screw all these other groups or whatever. And I think her point is that while it may be easy to do that now and feel comfortable doing that or whatever, but the outcome is not going to be good for us because, yeah, those groups are getting the brunt of everything that's happening, with Trump and in his country or whatever. But that stuff is going to start happening to us
trickling
or
to
whatever.
us. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like these
and I
folks who are
think
being
she's
deported, the folks who are being deported, right? These ICE agents, showing up to court hearings and stuff like that, pulling people off the road. Me, you, and Steve, we're all Black people. I know you guys have some Hispanic origins in your background or whatever, but I can see either one of us easily being pulled over because we look like we could be Cuban or Mexican or whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? I'm literally my dad's Haitian. You know what I'm saying? So who was to
Oh, you
stop them
out of
from
here.
pulling me over? Saying,
yeah,
"Oh, we think
on your mind
something's
the
up
time.
with you or whatever." You know what I mean? And so, I think that's her point. It's just that
No,
while we definitely have
I get
every
it.
right to feel that way, we can't do it this time.
I get it. Black people are definitely not as we're feeling something right now, right? You didn't vote for Kamala. We feel some kind of way. We've been telling y'all this shit. And I think she's absolutely right. I think it's a generational thing. I think it's because the people she's talking about and the circles that she's probably in, these are the people, again, the lawyers, the Jasmine Crockett types, all of these people that got their education and they're good. And their lack of empathy for other people, they're carrying it in their own community because there's no way as an educated black person, every time I go to work and I'm driving around my city and I see the conditions, there's no way that I should be okay with this shit. You know what I'm saying? But as a people, and I think the people Cross is talking about, there's a echelon of people in this community that because they're good, because their bills are paid, they can sit back and not have empathy for the Hispanic people and not remember, yo, your time could come too. And I think it's also said that they don't have empathy for their fellow people in their community because the shit that's going on today, where as a people, we just seeing in our communities and we don't care, it all ties together. And at some point, we got to realize we got to build ourselves up. And we also got to have empathy for the things that are happening to other groups in this country. Because if, as people of color, when one loses, we virtually all lose. And so that's why I said I think both things could be true. But, definitely, I definitely want to urge Black folks, especially those that are well off, that can sit behind their computer and laugh at other people. We got to remember, man, no one's safe. No one's safe, so yeah, I agree.
I do have empathy for these groups, and I think she's right, but I also think she's wrong. I'm always gonna be somebody that you reap what you sow. You make your bed, you lay in it. Like, it's not like this happened without people saying, yo, this is gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, we've been telling people this for 12 years now. If you think about it, if you really think about it, you went from the Obama time frame to Trump's whole 4 years to now Biden's 4 years, and then they're telling us that they're going back to Trump. So that whole window of time, people have been saying, yo, you got to watch out for this guy. You got to watch out for this guy. How many times I got to tell you not to touch a hot fucking stove? You touch the hot stove, you get burnt. Well, that's what you get. That's what you deserve. How many times, how you teach your kid, not to do something they shouldn't be doing? Eventually they get hurt. See, that's what you get. That's what you get. Shouldn't have been talking shit. That's why you got punched in your mouth. Like, this is the type of shit that I feel. And I do feel the empathy for those groups. I feel the empathy for the groups of people that are impacted. Obviously, a lot of them couldn't vote. So, they weren't part of it. But the ones that could vote chose to vote and chose Trump. And now they're saying, oh, I don't feel good because Wella is getting kicked out. Well, fuck you. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and
Sorry.
unfortunately,
And I get what she's saying. Trust me, I get what she's saying, but I just can't find it in my heart while I'm watching this or all this happen, not watching this specifically, but watching this happen to say I feel bad for them.
but unfortunately, that's been the role of Black people since we were brought over to this country. When the North needed soldiers, Black people were like, I don't really fuck with y'all either, but I got to do what I got to do. You know, in any war that was ever fought, Black people were like, you don't treat me well as a human being, as a citizen, but I got you. You know what I mean? When Teddy Roosevelt showed up with the Rough Riders after the Buffalo Soldiers already cleared shit out and did the job, you know, you were like, okay. When Jesse Owens went over to Berlin and won the gold medal and couldn't even come to the White House, I saved your ass, but I know y'all don't really fuck with me. That's been our existence this entire time in this nation, in this world. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, it's a heavy burden that we got to carry, but somebody got to do it.
And I
You
think
know,
we have to be prepared, right? Like, she's saying that we got to be better. I think we just have to be prepared for when it does happen, for us to stick together. And that's the biggest part. Like, we are so divisive as a people. We don't like to see each other doing better. Like, I heard I forget her name, Jazzy. I heard Jazzy on Joe Budden's podcast recently, and she said only in Black music will a Black creator not want to talk about the writer behind the music. Meanwhile, you got somebody like, Billy Ray Cyrus going up there thanking all his people, all his writers, and pushing them forward, right? And we as a people, we struggle at that. And so I say that to say that, like, when it does, or if it does get to that point when they don't have any more brown people and they start coming at Black people, we just have to be prepared at that point, and we have to find a way to be united versus trying to not be the slowest person, right? You see that dog, I don't got to be the fastest, I just can't be the slowest. We just can't have that mentality when it does start to trickle down to us. In the meantime, we still got to worry about us.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what y'all saying. I get it. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick, I was trying to say a second ago, I forgot to mention it, is Steve brought up the whole thing with the impacts to Target with the boycotts and stuff. And I gotta say, man, I'm I'm one of these people where I actually don't think that boycotts in this day and age work, only because they're not like how they were back in the day when we were doing like the Montgomery boycotts and Alabama and stuff with MLK and all those folks, where it was like long and it was sustained. You know, it seems like a lot of us kind of they're like, well, you know, I need something from here, so you know, it is what it is, kind of
We're
thing.
fickle.
And then
We're
also the
fickle.
way, yeah, we're fickle, but also just the way the country is set up. You know, is like a
I
lot of
did go
people
into
live in.
Target the other day, by the way. So
A lot of people live in deserts, right? Where they refer to as like food deserts, for example. And
Food
so it's like
deserts. Yep.
this is the only place I can shop. You know what I mean? And so I want to be with you in solidarity, but I can't shop anywhere else to get what I need. So I don't have a choice, you know? And so when they were talking about doing these boycotts against all these companies that cut their DEI programs and were Trump supporters and all that kind of stuff, I was just like, oh, this is not going to work. I went along with it just because my wife is like super into it, and I was like, I don't want no smoke. So who we boycotting this week? Oh, okay, cool, no problem. So,
shout out to
Yes,
Aaron.
dear. Yes, dear.
so right, you know what I mean. But like seeing how Target's stock valuation and their profits have just fallen off a
Plummeted.
cliff. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's showing you that you know this stuff it work. I don't know if it's working. You know what I mean? Like meaning like we're getting the change that we want from a company like a Target, but the impact of what they're doing is working. You know what I'm saying? And so I just wanted to say like salute to all those people who are doing that stuff. You know, because I like I said, I totally not that I was against it. I just didn't think it would work. And you know, they're kind of seeing you know you're seeing it happen, and you're seeing them paying the consequences for that or whatever.
But
You know,
that
so
right there, VP, that's exactly that's exactly what I be talking about. It's like as a people, you touched on so many things. As a people, we have forgotten, we have maybe not realized or understood the full potential that this community truly has. If we said we not gonna buy Nike, we not gonna buy this, we not gonna buy that, these people will be in trouble. And as a people, we haven't connected that. And you talking about a food desert. Well, Southwest Baltimore City has had a food desert for, I've been here 16, 17 years. At least the last 17 I've been here, and probably another 10 or 20 before that. We haven't done a damn thing to change it. People are still going into corner stores to buy food. It's all of this stuff that if we as a people, to Steve's point, if we focused on ourselves a little bit more, not saying neglect the others, but if we prepared ourselves as a people to say, hey, you ain't got to get this from Target. Target ain't doing you right. This it's a black owned company. You could do this from. Granted, we have our gripes with the black owned businesses and stuff like that. But if as a people we realize our true power, and I know it sounds very like Imhotep-ish or whatever, if we realize our true power, we could be prepared for when that day comes when Trump turns his pen at us. But to Steve's point, we are so worried about the wrong shit. We're ignoring, the things and the troubles that are going on in our communities. And it's sad, man, but something has to change. And we need some leadership. And I was
mhm,
just so disappointed yesterday, even in my own social organization, just looking like, damn, because I remember the mentoring programs that I helped start. I'm like, well, shit, I can only blame myself because I ain't been involved. I'm like, damn, what is really going on? And I really just challenge those of us with the know-how and the ability to do better to reach back and help the next person get better because we're gonna need the future. We're gonna need all hands on deck at some point.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look Cardi B shopping at Target or whatever. Like that shit is insane to
Yeah, I
me
saw
or
that.
whatever.
I did see that.
And I get it. Like Cardi, you know what I mean? Like she shops at Target all the time. Like this is like part of her. I don't know if she has like a deal with them or something, but she has all kind of posts on her IG, YouTube. You can find her like over the years shopping at Target or whatever. She says like even though she got all this money, she still shops there or whatever. And I
Hmm.
get that, but the people who support you, who made you all that money, you know what I mean? They got this boycott thing happening, and it would be nice if she was like, hey, I love Target, but I'm also going to be in solidarity with my people. And even though, she's Hispanic, she's still a person of color. She still got these black children from their black, you know what I'm saying? So
And
you would
she's the
think
same
that,
person. She was the same person condemning Trump and all that other bullshit before.
right.
And yet on the other side, fickle,
I just
Yeah.
wonder if
And,
Target
and,
if
and, and,
Target
and
is if Target is the convenient spot for her, one, and two, if they're also making it convenient for her by maybe shutting the store down, during certain hours to let her get in there because, for that star power. I'm not validating it 100%. I'm just thinking,
but
are
she's
there
got millions
reasons?
of dollars. She ain't
and
gotta
that's the
go there.
point. That's the point I was getting ready to make, Steve, when you started talking, is that it's not like the situation like me and EJ are talking about where like, oh, she lives in a food desert or whatever. She don't got no choice. You know what I'm saying? She got plenty of choices because of
To
Yeah.
have
her
options
wealth. She's choosing to still shop at Target. Now
and
it's
promote
possible, right? It's possible
it.
she didn't. Is it possible she didn't know about the boycott? I mean, it's possible, but Cardi B lives like I don't want to say she's like the top celebrity, but she lives her life online. So it's hard for me to imagine she don't know that this Target boycott is happening. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so it kind of just seems like she's like,
It's
yeah, fuck what,
irresponsible.
yeah, exactly.
It's irresponsible. She's got such a platform. She should be on board with what needs to be
Yeah.
moving us forward.
And
Um,
Somebody like a Jasmine Crockett or somebody that watched her champion Harris or somebody with that congressional power, AOC or somebody. Yo, AOC, you from the I'm from the Bronx, you from the Bronx. Cardi, you was on board with all of this stuff. This is not good for our movement, my sister. Don't rock with Target. Don't post this shit. I need you. This is what our politicians should be doing.
I never noticed AOC had dimples. I am liking them dimples.
I'm done. I'm done.
What? The only thing I would say on that is we got to make sure that, like, if we like the problem that we have as a people, like
I'm
black
done.
people we gotta understand that, like, just because the boycott worked with Target, like, we can't go boycott like Walmart or something, or start calling for a boycott because they raised the price on tires or something. Like, like we just got to make sure, because we do stuff like that. Like, we'll see that this worked, and then you lose the value of it because people will start trying to start these movements or start these initiatives that don't truly align with everything. And now it goes back to like VP's thought, where boycotts don't work. You know what I'm saying? I think this one worked because they stuck to one and said, yo, this is going to be the target. But had they gone to, and no pun intended, but had they gone to everybody that sunset DEI, it would have failed. These boycotts would have failed because, just like the NFL, right? When people were boycotting that, but not going at Coca-Cola, not going at CBS, and so on, right? But if they would have just said, "Yo, anybody that does DEI, we gotta sunset them," then you have nothing left. You
well,
literally,
they did do that, Steve. They did do that. So the way that these boycotts have worked is that these folks have like organized themselves online. They got like a whole list. So it's like, this week we're not shopping here. This week we're not shopping there or whatever. I think the reason Target got hit so hard is that I think people look at Target as being like a like bougie Walmart. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it was easy for
well, it
folks
is
to
bougie
say,
Walmart.
right, but I'm just saying, like, even though it is that way, like I look at, I don't shop at Target at all. You know what I mean? And it's not a price point thing. I shop at Walmart only for groceries or whatever, but I don't do any shopping at Target.
Okay.
But I think people look at it like it's almost like, like you look at groceries, right? Like, oh, I could go shop at Winn-Dixie or I could shop at Publix or whatever. Publix is expensive as hell, so it's easy to just cut it off because Publix is the bougie grocery store. You know what I mean? And so I think that's why the Target boycotts have been so sustained. It's just because of the price point makes it easier to just say we're not going there at all. Because, like, while this whole thing was happening, my wife would tell me all the time, okay, this week, we can't order groceries until Wednesday because the Walmart boycott is happening between this date and that date or whatever. You know what I mean? So they've kind of been doing everything all at once. It's just Target has been the one that's just been sustained throughout for the last couple of months.
But it's also the one that's been magnified. I know that there's this online thing where they say this is what we're doing, but no one's magnifying all those other ones. You know what I'm saying? The thing about Walmart is they supported Trump. So there's nothing you could do. Home Depot, same thing. They supported Trump. Your cable company is now sunsetting DEI. Why are they sunsetting DEI? They had to sunset it because they wanted to get this merger done with a specific individual, right? Like these are things that are happening, and you maybe you can't, boycott these things. What are you gonna do? Not use the internet? You're gonna not watch
Right.
TV at home? Like these are things that, and so to my point, I feel like they chose the right one, right? Target, not only because they sunset DEI, but also because what was noticed around the United States is, I can tell you for one, last year, Black History Month, you walk in there, they had these big ass end caps, like they had a whole section. And what came up on the internet and from a lot of areas is that the Black History Month section was streamlined and made extremely small, put in the back of the stores and stuff like that, right? In addition to the DEI sunset, in addition to Target being one who says, "Hey, we have tons of Black creators. We champion Black creators." Well, you're championing Black creators, but you're sunsetting the DEI programs that you offer. Like, I think that's why it multiplied, not just cost, because as much as I've gone to Target, I've probably bought groceries there maybe 5 times, and I've been to Target a million times. I could probably, close to. But from a grocery standpoint, man, most people aren't going in there for that. They're going in there for home decor and stuff like that, right? And the Target home decor is still less than Home Goods, So in comparison, you can go to Walmart and you might be able to find that same decor, but the quality is not the greatest. It's like what we talk about. So I think they did a great job choosing Target. I think it was just the right target, no pun again. And it grew wings. It grew wings and it flew away. And hopefully it continues. And we just got to find, right, at some point, does it come down to where these companies are afraid of the loss, or are they afraid of the government more? And that's where I think we'll start to see the shift in the mentality of some of these CEOs, because
Right.
Trump's only going to be here for 4 years, right? And well, based on if everything goes the way it's supposed to, he'll be here for another 3.5, 4 years, right? Your business can be gone by then. So is that
Right.
a risk that you're willing to take just so that you can be on this guy's good graces? He gonna be fine after 4 years. The same thing Elon said, right? Trump will be here 3.5 more years. I'm gonna be here for another 40. What you want to do?
hmm And the thing that these businesses have to understand, that I think they're not, and you kind of see this with the college thing, right? Where you have these universities that capitulated to Trump, like Columbia and some of these other schools. The bully's always going to want more.
Mm.
You don't you got $2 for lunch money. You only gave him 50 cents. Tomorrow you want $1. Next day he wants $1.50. The next day he wants the whole $2. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's happening with him there. Whereas Harvard is like, yeah, fuck you. We're not doing none of this shit. We're gonna fight you every step of the way, and they've won every step of the way. They've gone to court, they battled it out, and they won. The same thing you saw with these law firms that bent over for Trump, right? They bent the knee, and those law firms thought, oh, this guy's an idiot. We're gonna be able to take advantage. No, now you're stuck because you signed these deals with him. Whereas the law firms that fought, they won their cases. The 3 of the 4 of them that fought have won their cases in court so far. The other one is still ongoing right now, but they're going to win too. And then you also see these other companies that are shifting business away from those law firms that bent the knee. And you have companies that are actually headed by people who are Trump supporters who still left those law firms because those companies are saying, if you won't fight for yourself, how the fuck do I expect you to fight for me?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I think Steve, your point, Steve, is extremely important. The messaging, right? And because you see that stuff online, and if you don't have, somebody like in your house that's pushing this, that's telling you this stuff, and that's saying, no, this is important. It's not just window dressing. It's not just frivolous boycotting because somebody got called a black bastard somewhere. The messaging is so important, and I think that goes back to the lack of leadership because we used to have that person in the 60s that said, this is going on. We need to get behind this. This is how you do this effectively. Okay, this is where you go alternatively if you can't afford to do this and do that. Right now, the messaging just seems like, you have it where it's like, oh, people just boycotting, and then you get to the logic of VP where it's like, this shit don't really bother me. I don't really know that it's gonna work. The messaging isn't there, and as a people, we kind of gotta get this together because we could really do something special if we had the right messaging and the right leadership to make it work. But it's not there yet.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say before we get out of here is I saw a post online today that said somebody needs to take the initiative to look up all of the January 6th protesters and find out how many of them work for ICE today.
Mhm.
Because I'm
It's
sure.
funny you said last thing. I was saying last thing. I'm gonna say two real quick, but I was on mute. But
I'm biting, yo. Be original.
to EJ's point, or to both our points, I guess, about stuff like the food deserts and stuff like that, man. It's like, where are the folks like from our community, like the people, the ones that are rich? Like they don't got to be celebs or athletes or anything like that or whatever. Because I can't imagine, I'm not a businessman, but I can't imagine that opening a grocery store in the community, it's like a big endeavor.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, where are those folks? Because I would have to imagine if it's a food desert or whatever, like people are gonna shop there. If you build it, they will come. Like they say in that Field of Dreams movie. You know what I'm saying? So like, where are those folks in a place like a Baltimore that EJ is saying is a food desert to say, you know what? I'm gonna build this thing here. It's gonna be a black owned business in this black community that has a grocery store for these people to shop at, that they don't have to take an Uber ride 30 minutes to get to or whatever. And even though I don't expect this to be like, my lifeblood, for me to be able to live, it's something that I could do to give back. And then, yes, I do make a little bit money off of it too, but it's not like my primary focus of how I earn, you know what I'm saying? And those folks don't do that. And instead, it's like they just, like EJ said earlier, I got mine, people got to get theirs, whatever.
Crabs in a bucket.
And the other unfortunate side of that though is too, when we have had those little markets that have popped up in certain places. I've tried to explain this to people. I know a homeboy of mine who's a corporate attorney who has that mindset where it's like, yo, if we buy all of the real estate, we do this, we do that, we bring it, people come. And I have to tell them all the time, I'm like, you can't just put something there. And I'm not trying to go against your point, VP. I'm just speaking in the actuality of what I've seen because I've seen little markets in different places open up and close. And I have to remind people like you have to change the culture, have to change the mindset. You have to now educate this person that you have an EBT card. Don't sell $400 for this and that. Oh, go to the store, learn how to cook, learn how to grow your own, learn how to stay away from this and stay away from that. You know, it's a mindset, it's a culture, and it goes back to our people realizing, like, yo, I understand you got it and you went to college and you did this and you did that, but you got to remember where you're from. There's still some people that can use the knowledge that you have to better themselves. So, to your point, I've seen it happen where we've had little shopping places that popped up to try to address it, and it didn't sustain because people still don't go, and it's a lack of education, and we really, as a people, we really have to get back to this sense of community.
Yeah, like I hear you. Like I just think, like, for me growing up, I told you guys the projects that I grew up in, we had this Spanish grocery store that was near. It was like 5 minutes away from the projects I lived in, and like the nearest Publix in Winn-Dixie, it probably was more like 15, 20 minutes away, by driving. The Spanish spot, I mean, it was literally walking. Driving, you could be there in like 3 minutes. Walking, maybe 10. And I mean, and I was a kid, I rode my bike, so I could get there in like 5, 7 minutes or whatever. You know what I'm saying? And we used to shop there all the time, yo. Like, we rarely shopped at Publix or Winn-Dixie and places like that, because it was called Food Giant, and we went there and got everything from there, whether it was veggies, different meats, rice, drinks, whatever, you know what I mean, cleaning supplies, everything we bought from there,
Yeah.
and I mean, you literally can go there any day of the week and you couldn't find a parking spot because everybody from the projects shop there. I mean, mostly everybody from the projects shop there. And then right across the street was like this regular neighborhood that people shop there too, or you know what I'm saying? And so like I get your point, EJ, and I don't think that you're wrong. I'm not rebutting what you said, but I think also that I do think in this case that if we build it, the folks will come or whatever. You know what I
But
mean? Like,
you know the difference of the example that you bring up. It's a generational thing, and that's what I'm trying to say. Today, you can do that, but how many women today or people today our age don't know how to cook, don't know how,
got
you had your grandmother that was putting you on to the rice and peas, and Steve's mom cooked, and think about your niece or your little cousin or the person that don't know how to wash their own clothes. Generationally, as a people, we've lost the communal sense of understanding how to do the things that we need to do. And so there's a generation of us, there's an infant mothers program here. They go in and they teach these young mothers these life skills, because a lot of these kids today, they lack life skills. So it's like, as a people, we don't even know how to do these things. We don't know how to shop for rice and veggies. This shit is crazy. It's
I
bad.
got you. That makes sense. I got you.
Have I told you how much I hate Carolyn Levitt,
Who's that?
Trump's
press
press secretary.
secretary? I hate her face, yo. When she talk, I hate it. I want somebody to throw a shoe at her like they did with with your boy. Yo, it's crazy how far we've come. Do you remember when we thought George Bush, we backed Kanye West when he said George Bush don't like black people, yo.
Yeah.
And at least George Bush had the balls to come out and be like, "What are you talking about? I have a biracial grandchild or some shit like that." Like, at least you had that. These people, yo, Trump a wild boy, yo. Yeah, I hate these people. All right, I'm done, yo. I've had enough. I need to go figure something out, get some egg whites and maybe some turkey sausage or something.
Check you
Fill
out.
the old camel hump. I would pass it to VP, but he's doing that thing where he disappears from the stream that he does all the time. Oh, look, he's back.
You're a jerk.
All right, everybody. We definitely appreciate you guys for rocking with us on this week's episode of the Cast Worthy Podcast. Yo, shout out to South Florida's own Coco Gauff winning the French Open yesterday.
Big up to her.
Yeah, definitely big up to her. Like we always say, man, make that phone call, send a text message, reach out to folks. You never know what they're going through. Just let them know, you care about them, you're thinking about them, you love them, whatever.
June
Pretty
is
sure they'll
Men's
appreciate it.
Mental Health Month.
There you go. I mean,
They don't care. I think it's men's health in general.
Men's Health might be.
And pride.
Yeah.
Shout to the Rainbow Coalition.
Yeah. So, reach out to your people, whatever, mental health, pride, whatever it is. Just hit folks up. People might be going through things, you know what I mean? You can find the podcast on all podcasting platforms by searching at Castworthy. You can also find us on any of our social media by searching at Castworthy. On Instagram is at Castworthy_podcast. While you're there, you can leave us a like, subscribe, share, follow, tell a friend, help us grow the audience. We very much appreciate it. Steve got the little scrolling thing in the corner here. You can see the folks who are listening live on Facebook and commenting, interacting with us. We definitely appreciate you guys taking some time out of your Sunday to rock with us. For the folks who will listen later, we appreciate you taking that time as well. With that being said, we will see you guys next week with another fresh episode of the Castworthy Podcast. Until then, we out. We love you. Peace.